But we just don't have time if we're doing what I call the gerbil wheel. If we're on the gerbil wheel of doing the same thing over and over again, every month is a new month. Where do I find time to ask three or even one new question when I'm busy doing the stuff that I have to do? And we've got to focus our attention on fewer clients, but deeper work for those clients. And that's when we create the capacity to do the kind of work that matters to those clients.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today is the finale of a two-part series with Geni Whitehouse. And in this episode, she offers actionable tools and key mindset shifts to help you connect more deeply with clients and embrace the role of advisor with confidence. Let's dive into that conversation right now. Now, you're in a niche that it gives you even more superpowers because you see it from front to back, top to bottom, and you see it happening multiple times where you can say this,
Right.
This is what happens when you put a quarter in the machine.
That's right. I don't want to know what kind of machine you're putting quarters in, Michael, but I get the concept.
Oh, I got young kids, so
It's one of those horses at the store, if they still have them in a few places.
Wherever we can put quarters, they're begging for quarters.
Right. And get one of those things, those sticky things that slide down the wall. Those are big with my grandchildren.
Oh yeah, they load these up at the arenas. They have those banks of like little toys that you're going to vacuum up and candies and all that stuff. Everywhere you go, it's like, in this day and age, there's no tap to get that stuff out yet.
That's right.
Thankfully.
Oh, Lordy. Those were the days.
Yes.
So I was going to say, you totally threw me with the quarter thing there, Michael.
Quarter in the machine. You know what? You put a quarter in here. This is, I've worked with, how many wineries have you worked with in your day?
We have 500 wineries. Now you're making me talk like a kid. Wineries in a 30-mile radius. There are 500 wineries.
Amazing.
So, it's a very unique. It's a lot,
Yeah.
and that's just the tip of the iceberg because we have Sonoma right next door that has a ton, and they're all over this whole area. So, it's a ton of people in the area, which is very unique to have that geographic concentration. But what we do is work with them, and we do training through the Vintners Association to provide free education about financial concepts. I do training there on a regular basis. And that's how we established ourselves as different, because I can say I'm different all day long, but people don't know what different looks like when it comes to accounting. And so we teach them stuff, and we use a fake winery as our case study called Le Coup Rouge. They have their own website. It's lecouprougewinery.com. And it's a redneck winery. Le Coup Rouge is redneck in French. And this is a way that I kind of gave myself permission to be Southern. Because as soon as I start talking, it's very obvious that I'm not from here and I'm not, a wine aficionado. So, and we talk about that winery and all the stuff that they do and how silly it is. And all that comes from, of course, real life examples of what people do. But again, I make them laugh. They read the story about the family, they start to laugh, and they're not afraid that this is going to be boring and scary and overly technical. So those are the kind of things we need to think about. How can we take elements of our own brand and who we are and infuse that into the way that we deliver information to our clients to give them permission to listen and not be afraid of whatever topic. People come to us ashamed of their financial situation many times and ashamed of their books, and again, afraid that they're going to look like idiots. And if we're out to prove how smart we are, then we're making them feel even dumber than they feel initially. And it's just not true. They're running a business. They understand aspects of that we don't and probably never will, but we can help them feel better about the financial stuff too.
it's so powerful, and your story, that's a big piece from my understanding of what you do, and that makes sense with the winery example, is telling stories that help connect people to, and so with your clients, having the ability to tell stories that helps them connect with the message that you're delivering.
We also use DISC, D-I-S-C, behavioral styles, in our consulting. This is one of the other things that I wish I'd known when I started out in accounting, or started out in school for that matter. And it's 4 dimensions of behavior, 4 standard behavioral styles that people come to communicate with. And it works globally across different cultures. And it really helps you understand that the way I see things and communicate may not align with the person on the other side of the table when I'm in a conversation. And one of the challenges we have as bookkeepers and accounting folks is that we tend to be wired for detail and accuracy, which makes sense because of what we do. And our CEO clients are wired for short attention span. Just give me the answer. I don't care how you get it. And you can see the natural conflict between me wanting to tell you everything I did to get to the answer, and the CEO going, just tell me if it's bad or good. And so we have to understand that, and then we have to learn how to find information that we can communicate in a way that resonates with that different style. And that was just a huge eye-opener for me. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? Because it's almost, you're holding back an ocean there, but person's behavioral style, their characteristics, who they are, is so core to the work that they do and who they are as a human being. And yet you've got to contain yourself, if you will, in service of the client. And that's another layer here. Like it's like this a big layer. But if you think about it, I bet you if our listener thought about it, the clients they work best with and are most successful with are probably more like them than not. But that limits you in terms of the impact you can make in your clients. And so by starting to pay attention to that would make it a difference. What are some of the things that a person that is like that can do, let's say in a sales meeting or a presentation, that would make a difference?
The main thing for me in the DISC, when I first discovered DISC, is understanding that people communicate differently. I thought everybody communicated like I did, right? Michael, my way must be the way. And so I communicated that way, right? When I discovered, and I'm not a high C, which is one of the reasons I struggled in doing repetitive tax work, which is consistency, compliance, steadiness. I'm an I, which is this, yakking all the time, talking.
That's right.
So, and influence is part of that. And inspiration. So it's very different from what the job I tried to force myself to do for 15 years, which is why I was so exhausted every night when I went home. I could do it, and anybody can change and do other things outside of their natural wiring, but it takes a huge amount of energy to do that. So if I'm a high C, a detail person, that is why you're great at what you do. But what you have to do is realize that you have a superpower that you can bring to bear on any client, and that is listening. If you will just listen more than you talk, and not, again, try to prove the accuracy or 100% how smart you are in your dialogue with that owner, but instead help them feel how smart they already are and what they do know. And again, bring data to bear on whatever the challenge is that they're facing. You can succeed. But the awareness that they may not want to hear the information in a 40-page, 40-tab spreadsheet, even though that's what you did, they just want to know, am I on the right track, yes or no? And yet you've done all this work. And I mean, I've been in cases where I did, 40 hours of work to create something. I want them to see it all. Well, they don't care if they're a high D. If they're an entrepreneurial business starter, risk taker, the main thing they want to know, and they trust you to have done all of that. And they might want to see the details after, if they don't agree with whatever conclusion you present. But otherwise, if you back up something they intuitively think they knew, and now they're happy, and that's where they're going to value that tremendously, because they're going to rely on you to have done all the legwork. But we have to just be aware, and we might meet somebody who is wired like us, and then we can provide what they need. But listening to identify what you're dealing with is going to be key also. But use that listening superpower, and you're a deep thinker. That other person might be a really short, quick thinker who doesn't consider all the angles, and you can provide perspective that they might not naturally have on their own. So huge value there. So you don't have to be an extrovert to do advisory. You have to be curious and listen, and that's how you succeed.
It's powerful stuff, and it's often we forget about some of these nuances of just human communications, and just the differences are so great, and also just some of the techniques. Thinking about watching my kids grow up and how they communicate, and the different things I notice about their peers and how different they are, and they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. But in communications, I would say so many people are so busy, they forget about some of these things in this fast-paced world. And especially with a fast thinker, someone who's going through, has lots on their plate, lots of different functions. A business owner would have many different hats that they wear. And so if you don't bring that person into your zone, and, there's techniques to do that, bring them into the zone, get them focused, identify what are the outcomes, what do we want to accomplish in this meeting? Do you have any, what are your objectives? Like, it doesn't have to be like we're having a, condo board meeting, but it's call for minutes, motion, we have the agenda and all that nonsense. But all of those things are very important. They're very structured. But if we can do a little bit of that, it makes it so much better for some of the things you're talking about in their different personality, so that everybody knows where we are, where we're going, and so communication can happen in that moment.
So I think one of the biggest challenges is we're very checklist driven as detailed people. And oftentimes we come into the meeting with this person who's, the short attention span person. And we have this long checklist of stuff that we want to make sure we cover. Well, none of that might be relevant to that person. So for us to abandon that checklist is a huge pain for us. It's a very painful thing to do. And I've been the managing partner of the firm who brought me into this firm is a high C, and we would do consulting engagements together. And he would have this big checklist, and I would kind of not. I would come in blank, which I know most people are not going to do, but I would be responsive to whatever came up. And he would try to go through, and we'd get to the thing that we wanted to uncover, but he still had 3 more points on his checklist. And the owner has already gotten what they want. And so adding beyond that is actually taking away from the value. And so over time, he learned, he eventually just threw the checklist away and said, I don't need this. But the checklist gave him comfort that if something, if we didn't have something to say, we could fall back on it. But don't be rigidly stuck to your agenda when you're meeting with someone else who has a very different agenda. So flexibility helps too, which is hard when you're wired to get it right and 100% accuracy and security around not having a question that you can't answer and all of that. But you have to, at some point, let that go and care more about that other person getting what they need than you getting your checklist checked off.
That's right. Hitter also mentioned earlier on about mindset, and it resonated with me. And I mean, if there's one thing we talk a lot about, it's mindset, and how, when you said that, my lens these days is through my kids, and I see when he has achieved, my son, when he has been visibly successful at something, it gives him confidence. If he's not getting recognition for that, or he's not clear whether he's doing something right, you can really see the confidence it sucks out of him, and his performance declines. Yeah. Everybody's different when it comes to that. But in business, mindset's so important. And doing this work, if your wheelhouse has been bookkeeping and checklists and making sure everything is black and white, moving into something like this is a big shift for many of our listeners. So what are the critical shifts that people need to make in order to do it? And maybe we know that they need to shift. We know that they don't walk in there thinking they're an expert. And I loved how you framed this of your job isn't to be the expert, it's to make your customer the expert. That's huge. But what else in terms of getting people to the place where they think they can do this, or they can, have the courage to actually try?
So our training has 3 areas of that we have to cover in order to do advisory. Number 1 is mindset, and then we have a tool set, and then skill set. In order to do this, it requires all 3 of those. And that's what our training is 14 hours of videos and 100 tools, including those videos. So there are 100 things. This is what you do. Here's how to say it. Here's how to write your engagement letter. It's because this comes from live training with accountants and bookkeepers who came up with every possible objection to doing this work. And so every time an objection came up, a new tool was created. So that's where we have this expansive toolkit, because we've been fighting this battle with the accounting and bookkeeping profession for a long time. So we know what you're going to run into, and here's how you fix it or overcome it. But the first mindset shift that you have to make is that timeliness beats accuracy. If I'm an owner of a business, and I've sat down with owners in the wine industry, and I've had owners who brought us in to figure out why they can't get the information they need from their teams. And we brought the teams in the room. I had the owner at the end of the table, and the owner pounded, and this is a woman owner, pounded her hands on the table and said, "Why can't somebody tell me what we sold, who bought it, and what I have left to sell?" And they said, "Well, we can tell you, but it'll be a couple of weeks because I got to put it in this system and go through." And so I had them walk through the process of what it took to get information from the sale to this report. And they were rekeying stuff 4 and 5 times. Every person was taking it and rekeying a different format. This person was, it was ridiculous. And the owner's sitting there hearing this. And I'm going, "Why are you doing that? Why don't we automate the data from here to..." And they said, "Because that's $500 to buy that integration." And I turned to the owner and said, "Is it worth $500 for you to get that information faster?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, why didn't you spend the $500? And the employee said, "Because we're told not to spend money." And yet I've got 3 employees spending all this time doing something that they could have stopped doing for. And then I turned to the owner and said, "And what if that information that they give you faster isn't 100% accurate?" She said, "I don't care. It needs to be close." And I said, "Would you rather have it 100% accurate 3 weeks later or today and 95% accurate?" She said, "Today, 95." And I said, "Do you all hear that? That's what matters. And we need to be focused on that, not reconciling across all these things." And then they were changing names from here. I mean, it was a disaster. And this is what's going on in businesses everywhere.
Everywhere.
And we're focused on getting it right for the financial statements. Again, 6 weeks later, oftentimes the owner sees the financials and doesn't understand them. So if I can make that happen better, and all I did was listen. I didn't know anything about how this was going to flow. So my expertise was documentation, which detailed people are great at, listening and documenting. So those are the kind of skills that we have already, but we just don't have time if we're doing what I call the gerbil wheel. If we're on the gerbil wheel of doing the same thing over and over again, every month is a new month. Where do I find time to ask 3 or 1, even one new question when I'm busy doing the stuff that I have to do? And we've got to focus our attention on fewer clients, but deeper work for those clients. And that's when we create the capacity to do the kind of work that matters to those clients.
That's right.
You got to start with one client and ask different questions. And you will see in that first meeting how different the conversation goes.
There's a couple things there. One is, well, the bit about capacity. We'll talk about that. But if you think of any business, and this is for our listener, should be very exciting because the opportunity is massive. Every business is the way that it is today, and in the next moment, it will change. And right. You compound that. You add staff, you add things, new technology, new processes, new products, new this, new that. Business is just of evolution. Like, it's always changing. There's very few businesses that don't change. And with that change, as the owner, as any business grows, the owner can become disconnected with these arms and bits of the business. And so what you have here is the owner sitting up at the top going, "Why don't I have the numbers I need to do my job?" And you go down and you bring everybody in a room and you map that out and you see like it's an absolute mess. And that's part of a human culture thing, lack of training perhaps. And even not then, you could train someone to your blue in the face. But if they perceived something, like if a company's maybe trying to reduce costs, their perception is, "Oh, I have to not spend money. So I'm going to save $1, but it's going to cost us $10,000 by saving that $1. They're not responsible for that. They don't have that lens. They just have like, I'm doing a great job here by saving $1.
That's right.
So there's so much of that in every single business, successful business, non-successful businesses. There is optimization and improvement and all sorts of opportunities inside any business that you've identified if you're willing to go there. And then that's capacity piece, which is, if you think about, there's so many, I mean, I have lots of conversations with bookkeeping business owners over the years. Classic, I've got this client, they're a pain in the patoots. And, it's like that person, that business is preventing you from working with and making a massive difference with the non-pain in the patoots customer, and so much opportunity for you and your business that's the place to start. I love that you said, it's like pick one of your favorite customers that has an opportunity, get rid of a couple of those pain in the patoots, use that capacity to work on this customer where you're going to make a massive difference. And now we're talking.
That's how it happens. And so one of the questions that we have, so an owner often comes to us and says, why don't my employees do what I want them to do? Right? It's a common thing. When I'm gone, they can't function. They don't. Well, that's a clear indication that you haven't empowered them to do what you want them to do. You haven't given them the information that you have, because the information's up here and the work's down here, and there's a big disconnect. And so we have that owner say, and the owner might say, Sally is not doing her job. We need to get rid of Sally. And the question we teach our folks to ask is it a people or a process issue? And it is 99% of the time a process problem. Sally doesn't have the tools to do what she's supposed to do. And that's one of the things where we can come in and, again, not knowing the answer to what the problem is, but document for that owner. Look at these processes you've got. And you're the problem because you come in and override the credit reporting requirement that we have for a new customer, or you come in and do this, or you don't tell them what they did, or you're not giving them insight into the sales activities that they're doing every day. They don't see it till the end of the month. Well, I can't fix it then. If you show me today that I need to sell 5 more bottles or whatever, then I can change behavior. And I probably, as the frontline person, know exactly what behaviors I need to change based on that. But if you tell me I need to sell $1 million more, I have no idea how to connect to that. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff between the top and the front line that we can do to make those numbers meaningful and actionable, which is what they need to be in order for us to make a real difference.
So true. So much opportunity there. Now, you work with a lot. You've trained a lot of people to do the work that you do. Where do you see, and you've already mentioned a few of them, but are there other common mistakes that you see them making when they're trying to add advisory services to their business? Or maybe that's part of the problem. They're not even trying to add them to their business. Yeah, I think you mentioned that.
That is the biggest problem. They won't start.
Yeah.
And I've seen this in all walks of life, especially for people who have very high standards for themselves. And that's what our profession is about. The people who do this work are used to very high standards of accuracy, performance, expertise, and all of that. And the biggest challenge is that they never start it. They don't try because they're afraid that they don't have 100% knowledge in whatever they're getting ready to do, and that holds them back. And they don't trust the abilities that they already have that can be leveraged in different ways. And again, the role is to ask questions, to document, to seek out data, and to help use technology to translate our language of accounting into visible tools that an owner or a frontline worker can understand and then connect with so that they can do whatever they need to do to make improvements in the business. Mm-hmm. So technology is the biggest gift that we have as accountants these days, because we can translate all of our stuff into different formats that other people can understand and still know that the back end stuff is right for us, but manipulate it in ways that they can use it in a much better way than we have in the past.
Absolutely. And you take that and add a niche like you have. There's all sorts of creative. It's finding those opportunities. I mean, even with AI and the help that it's giving us to take data, I mean, it's like baking. Everybody can bake a cake. Everybody's got an oven, everybody's got flour and sugar and all the pieces. Everyone has access to exactly the same pieces. I've never had a pie that tasted exactly like the pie my mom makes, or my granny made, or my grandma made. They're all different. Every single pie. I buy one from a store. I get pies all around the world. I love pie. Not one's the same. Why? Because little differences here, tweaks there.
That's right.
Need that, start here, don't do that, add this. I mean, multitude of variables. In business, in finance and accounting, you add AI and all the technology that we have. Then it's like, bring your creativity to that and what can be done. Add a niche to that. What can be done, large learnings and observations throughout a career. So much opportunity for our listeners to be digging into this. This is the future for sure. And on that, I'd like to ask about that. You've seen also from mistakes to what is making, like, who are the people that really succeed in this? What is it that they've done differently, or any observations from that perspective?
The people who are succeeding have really put the needs of the client over their own fear. They have a bigger passion for making that client successful than they have fear going through their own mind about failing or making a mistake or saying something that doesn't work. And that's what it takes. I mean, that's what it takes to do anything different. A passion to change is greater than the fear that you have of the unknown. And when you have that passion, you will go to great lengths to figure out how to help that client. I mean, I face that every day. I was out there doing Peachtree software consulting. That's how I built my accounting practice back in Atlanta. And I'd show up at a cold storage thing that I didn't know anything about, and they'd have Peachtree, and I'd come in and they'd go, "I'm not an accountant," like I was going to arrest them. So they're immediately afraid that I'm going to see how bad they are. But understanding what they did, and I didn't know the business, but when I looked at the transactional stuff, I could see the story of the business and how things were moving. And then I could help them overcome the fear and then think about what they might do in that process to improve it. But to go out every day in front of a new kind of client that I didn't know anything about was terrifying. But I also knew that I could help. I may not have the immediate answer, but I could at least alleviate the fear and make sure that the software was at least functioning properly so that they could get the information they wanted out of it. And so in everything I've done, I mean, I didn't want to do stand-up comedy, but I really wanted to help people not suffer like I had when I was doing the job that wasn't right. And also those owners who suffered because I didn't tell them stuff that they could connect with. And so I wanted to get good at it so I could help more. And that drove me to overcome the horrible fear that I have, and I still have, of speaking. Every time I get on the stage, I freak out, I want to run, I have a stomach ache, I go back and forth and I can't do this. But as soon as I get on that stage, I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I know that I can survive that fear. And that's what we all face, no matter whatever we say or show on the outside, we are all afraid of failure and afraid of looking stupid because we don't have all the answers. But our clients will respect the vulnerability that we bring to bear on a challenge we may have not faced before. And we also have tools and insights and perspective that they will never have. And so we need to trust that and trust our own abilities.
So powerful. This has been absolutely fantastic. I have several other questions that I could ask, but we are going to allow them to come and learn more from you in the work that you do. Perhaps it's been such a nice conversation. There's been so many gold bars that you've delivered here for our listener to add to their business right away. No reason why they can't do something new and different and make some changes based on this conversation. So I want to thank you for that. If people wanted to learn more, you've got a couple of things you do, websites, I'm sure. Maybe just voice those. We'll put them into the show notes, of course, but sometimes people hear them and can just go and type them into their computers.
Okay. It's theimpactfuladvisor.com is the website for the advisory training. You can also find me on GeniWhitehouse.com. That's sort of my wrapper around all the various things that I do. You can email me at Geni, Geni, at evenanerd.com if you want to connect or chat or talk with me directly. And I'd be happy to talk with you. I currently have a cohort that I'm putting people through, which is they get the online training license for a year and they can do it on their own pace. But I walk them through module by module for the first 3 levels. and bring in stuff for my own consulting as part of that. So I do one of those a year, and I have one that I just started, and we've had the first kickoff session for that. And so it's something I do annually. But otherwise, they can do it yourself online training for a relatively low price. And it's a subscription model. Again, you have access for 12 months, and you have the videos and a bunch of downloadable tools that you can put to use immediately and start changing your life quickly.
Amazing. So great. Well, this has been a real pleasure for me. I know it will be for our listener. On behalf of our listener, thank you for your generosity in coming on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure, Michael. Thank you for having me.
A terrific conversation with Geni, some valuable insights there. And Geni, thank you so much for being on the show. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.